Welcome back, CAD 31 CATIA class. In this video we're going to go over drafting. So we are going to create a drawing of the T extrusion as instructed in chapter 5 of your textbook. So we're only going to make a drawing of a single part. In CAD 32 later on you will learn how to create drawings of assemblies, sub-assemblies, exploded view assemblies, and detail drawings. But for CAD 31, we're only going to learn how to create a single part drawing, referred to as a detail drawing. Okay, so we're going to create a detailed drawing of our T extrusion. So here's the T extrusion. If you would like to use a different part for your drawing, you're more than welcome. Okay, so I'm just going to follow the textbook. I'm not going to go over every single topic covered in the drafting workbench. But if you would like to include some of that in your drawing, you may. Alright, so we're going to create a drawing of our T extrusion. So first let's go to the drafting workbench. But let me first show you the lecture notes. Okay, so we're going to be going to the drafting workbench. And when you save your drawing, it'll save as a .CAD drawing. So .CATIA drawing is the extension for a CATIA drawing. So for the drafting workbench, you're going to look for this little drawing bench with the gear on top. Go to Start, Mechanical Design, and go to Drafting. Okay, so let's go to Start, Mechanical Design, Drafting. Okay, so you have a few options here. As you can see, as I hover over these options, you can either start with the blank sheet, or you can have CATIA, when it opens the drafting workbench, generate views for you from the part. It doesn't always give you exactly what you want, so I typically just start with the blank sheet. Okay, so I'll go with the empty sheet or blank sheet, and currently is set to ISO international standards in millimeters for our sheet size. Later on I'll show you how to change it to inches and using an American standard. Alright, so I'm going to just click OK. So this will bring me over to the drafting workbench. And just like a part or an assembly, it has a tree. If I hold on to the wheel, I can actually move the tree around. I can also zoom in and out, just like on a part. Okay, so be aware of it, just in case you accidentally move it and you're not sure what happened. You can always do a zoom fit also. I can do a zoom fit. Oh, that's my mistake. That's a zoom fit for the drawing. But here I can just zoom in and out on the tree if I want to. And you can extend this just like an Excel spreadsheet. Alright, so let's go back to the notes. So we were not able to use a standard American sheet size like an ANSI or ASME sheet size, but I'll show you how to do that manually. Again, I just always prefer to start with the blank or empty sheet with no generated views. Okay, so one of the things you can do to make things easier is to put your part and the drawing side by side. If you have the room on your screen, if you have a large screen, then it's very useful to set them side by going to Windows, Vertical. If you go window horizontal, it'll place one file on top and the other one below, and it'll be too long and too narrow vertically wise. But my mistake, horizontally wise, it'll be too narrow, so it's just better to set it up vertically. Okay, so let's go back. And I'm going to go window. Let's go horizontal first just to avoid using window. Set your files horizontally, you can see it's just too narrow horizontally wise, right? But it sets it up vertically. File on top, file below. So I want to set it up so one is on the left, one is on the right. So I'm going to select the bottom file, which is the part. Notice how it takes me to the part workbench. So the reason I selected this window, make it active, is so that it'll place it on the left and then the drawing will be placed on the right. So it'll put the active one on the left when I go to window, vertically. Set up your windows vertically. Okay, so vertical, vertical, instead of going horizontal across. Okay, and if I click on the drafting window, you see it'll take me back to the drafting workbench, and I can see the drafting icons. If I wanted to make some changes to the part, I can always go back to the part, and it'll take me to the part workbench, right? All right, so let's go ahead and generate our first view. So let's go back to the lecture notes. So we're going to go to the Views toolbar, and we're going to generate our first view, our front view. Once we generate a few views, or at least one view, we'll be able to create some of these other options like auxiliary view or orthographic projection view. But we can't use these icons until there's at least one view, right? Once we create our first view, then these will light up. When they're grayed out, you're not allowed to use them. They're locked. Okay, so let's go ahead and create our front view. So we're going to generate a view, and we're going to use this compass to rotate or flip our view to the desired orientation. Okay, so let's go ahead and go back to CATIA, and let's generate our first view. So let me click on the right. I'm going to click on the right. So now we're back in the drafting workbench. I'm going to do a zoom fit. Okay, there it is. Okay, so here's the views toolbar. And if I open up the sub toolbar, it gives us more options. Notice orthographic projection is off, and so is auxiliary view. It'll light up once we have our first view generated. Okay, so let's create our front view. So you click on front view, then you have to go to the model. Okay, so we're going to click here in space. Notice the one on the right is blue, the one on the left frame is a light grayish blue. So once I click in space here, notice now this is blue. And I need to click either a plane or a flat surface. So as soon as I hover over a flat surface, notice it's giving me a preview of my front view. You can also, once again, use a plane. So any plane or any flat surface will generate our view for us. Okay, so I'll just click on this flat planar surface, click, and then it'll generate the view. Okay, so let's set up our first view. So from our textbook, this will be our front view. So notice I can rotate. I can also flip. So you can see I can flip. I can go across. Once again, I can rotate. Okay, so this is our front view. And I'm going to go ahead and generate it. I can either click this button or click out in space to generate the view. In 3, 2, 1, click, and it generates our view, and there's our front view. Okay, so from our textbook, we are asked to create a detailed drawing of the T extrusion. Once again, if you choose to create a drawing of a separate part, a different part, it could be a swivel, the U-joint, or something from an earlier chapter, you're more than welcome to. Alright, so let's go back. Before we do, we are going to create a side view and a top view. Then we'll come back and create additional views. So we will create the side view and the top view. Okay, so let me zoom in. So I can either use the magnifying glass here to zoom in or zoom out. We can do a zoom fit, right? Okay, there it is. If your sheet size is too large or too small, don't worry about it. I'm going to come back and show you how to change the sheet size. Alright, so notice the frame is red, so that's active. Notice how this is blue. It's currently the active view. So now, since we're ready to create a top view and a side view, you got to make sure that this is red. Okay, so this is red. Well, what's the other option? Let me zoom in. If I double click on the sheet, for example, double click on the sheet, and then click in space to deselect, I want you to notice that the frame is blue. So if I try and create an orthographic projection or an auxiliary view, it's not going to let me until I have an active view. Actually, you know what? I'll go ahead and drag this out. So once I double click on this frame, it'll turn red, and these two will light up. Double click, 3, 2, 1, don't blink. Double click, and notice these two are light up. I clicked in space to deselect, so you can see that this is red. So now I can do an orthographic projection. So let me go ahead and create the right side view. Click. So it's using the front view to project from. So you can go left, you can go down. You have to pull far enough away from the view for it to generate. If you're too close to the view, it's not going to generate a preview. So you have to pull away far enough so you can see it generate an orthographic projection. So let's go with the right side view and click. Okay, notice it's blue. The frame, you can only have one that's red. You can only have one active view at a time. Okay, so we're ready to create a top view. So make sure this is red. If the other one was red, then they would try and project off of this view. But we want to do it off of the front view. So notice it's red. If you're not sure, you can always just double click, right? You can also double click here. If I wanted to project off of the left view, I can double click here and notice it turns red. Nope, but we're going to project from the front view. Double click on the front view and let's create another orthographic projection. And this time we'll create the top view. You got to pull far enough away for it to generate the view. Okay, and there we have it. So we have our front, top, and side view. Okay, let's talk about sheet size. Alright, so sheet size. Let me go ahead and jump forward on the lecture notes. You can right click on the sheet and it will take you to its properties. So right click on sheet, properties. Actually, my mistake here, I'm showing right clicking on a view properties. So these are the properties for a view, front view in this case. Let me go over to sheet. Here it is. So when you right click on the sheet, you'll see the properties of the sheet. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to right click on sheet 1, right click properties. It'll take me to the sheet properties, and as you can see, it defaults to an ISO European standard, millimeters. Alright, so if I go to the drop down and look for American standards, ANSI, ASME, or even Japanese standards, JIS, it's not listed. Okay, so you can create your own. Okay, so this is a little tricky. Sometimes you have to customize your own sheet size, and this is the way you do it. So let's go with an A size. Let's go with an ANSI, American National Standard Institute. Okay, so let's do an ANSI size, A size. Click in space. Oh, let me try again. Oh, didn't work. Let me try it again. I misclicked. I'm gonna use the backspace and let's go with an ANSI size. and then click away, and you're going to see these grayed out dimensions for the sheet turn on. So I'm going to click away. Oh, it's already been it's already listed. Okay, so maybe we do have an ANSI A size in here somewhere. All right, so let me so it does recognize the A ANSI size standard, but for some reason it's not loading it. So let me go with ANSI A size. So I'm gonna rename it ANSI A size. See if it accepts that. Click in space. I'm gonna click out here in space and watch how this lights up. There it is. Okay, so an A size is 8.5 by 11. Okay, so we're gonna go 8.5, 8.5, 8.5 for the height, and 11 for the width. Now, if yours is defaulting to millimeters, you can always type in the units. You can always type in inches if you like. Okay, so there it is. Now you don't have to change the sheet size if you don't want to. I'm just showing you how you can do it. Okay, and then when I hit apply, you're gonna see this change to an A size. Apply. Notice that's an A size. Okay, so 8.5 in height, 11 in width, and OK. And obviously this is way too small, as you can see. All right, so I'm going to change it to a different size. Let's try a B size. Right-click Properties on the sheet. So I'm going to create a new one. Let's go with the B. And a B size is 11 by 17. 11 by 17. And apply. Notice it's larger now. So now we have an A size. Apply. A B size, which is 11 by 17. Apply. Okay, that's still too small. So let's add another one. Let's go with the C size. Okay, a C size is 17 by 22. So I'm going to change this to 17 inches. And this one, 22. And apply. Notice it's a lot larger. All right, so we're going to hit OK. We'll accept it. And I think the textbook, chapter 5, uses a C size. And OK. All right, so that's much better on the sheet size. By the way, if you wanted to change the scale of your views, so right now it's 1:1 scale, full scale. So if you were to print it out, it'll print out at full size, an actual size. Okay, but if you wanted to change the scale, I can always hold on to the control key, select all 3 views, and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to change the scale. Go to Properties. Instead of 1:1 full scale, by the way, you can type in decimals, ratios, fractions. It'll accept any. So let's say I wanted to go with a 1:2. That's half scale. So you can type it in as a fraction, 1/2, a ratio, 1:2, or you can type in 0.5 for your scale. And I'm going to apply in 3, 2, 1. Apply. Well, it looks like it only did 2 of them. Looks like I didn't select the front. But that's how you change your scale. I'm going to leave it at 1, full scale at 1. Okay, so I'm going to type in 1. I can go 1:1, 1 divided by 1. Type it in as a fraction, 1 divided by 1, etc. Or just type in 1 and apply. Okay, so it'll change it back to full scale. Yeah, so it looks like I misselected and didn't pick the front view, but you got the idea. Okay. All right, so Let's go ahead and create more views. So if we go back to our assignment, okay, so we're also going to create a section view. Here's a section view BB. We're going to cut through the pair of holes here and create a section view. But there should be an A somewhere, so we got BB. Here's A. So we got to do A first. We got to go in order. Okay, so this is detail A. So detail A is showing a chamfer of this corner here. Okay, so if I was to zoom in, we're going to create a detail view of the right side view, and it'll start in alphabetical order. It'll start with detail A. Okay, so let's go ahead and create that. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit to my side view. Now, since we're going to create a detail of this corner here, we got to activate this view. So I'm going to double click on the frame, double click. Notice it's red. So now we're going to create a detail view, and here's the detail view icon. There's more options. You can do a polygon, you have different options. I'm just going to use the first one, which will give us a circular detail. Okay, so I'll pick the first one. And let me zoom in a little bit. And we're going to do a detail of this corner here. So I'm just going to pick somewhere here in the middle. I'll just eyeball it. Click. And if I'm happy with that size detail circle, then I click and it'll generate it. As you can see, it's generating the view. I'll put it up here. Notice it's going to generate it at twice the size of our reference view, which is the right side view. And click, and there's our detail. Let me go ahead and clean this up a little bit, make it look professional. There it is. Alright, so our detail A, 2:1 scale. So our detail is always generated at twice the size of our reference view. You can always change it. If you're not happy with 2:1, you can always change it. Actually, I think in our assignment, it asks to make it larger. Let's see, let's look. Yep, 7:1. So here, our textbook is requesting that we do a scale of 7:1. By the way, avoid using odd numbers. You want to go 2:1, 4:1, 8:1, 10:1. Avoid using odd numbers. It's not wrong, but it's just not very common to use odd numbers in scaling. I do it only if I have to. It's rare, but sometimes I will use an odd number. Alright, so let's go ahead and change it to 7:1. Right-click Properties on the frame, and we're going to change the scale of 7:1. If you want, you can just type in 7 and apply. You can see it's much larger, and OK. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to maximize. It's too crowded to do any work, so I'm going to ignore the model for a while. I'll come back to it later. So I'm going to double click on the frame or click maximize. Okay, that's much better. Let me zoom out, and I'm going to move the detail view up here, just like in the handout. There's our detail A. And we'll come back and add dimensions. Okay, and you can see the scale is 7:1. And I also want you to notice that the name of this call out is detail A. Alright, so now let's create our section BB. Okay, so let's go back to our assignment. Okay, so now our instructions are to create a section BB. Okay, so we need to first activate the top view, turn it red, and then when we do a section view, we're going to click once, and then when we're ready to generate our view, our section view, we need to double click. Okay, you need to double click for it to generate the section view. If you don't double click, it will not generate the view, it thinks that you're probably creating a bunch of offset section views. Okay, so let's go back to CATIA and let's do our section view. So first we're going to double click. Oh, I forgot we're using notice how it says bottom view? I actually did not want the bottom view. I wanted the top view. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my projection type. So I'm going to go to sheet 1, right click properties. And I completely forgot to mention this. So we're not going to use first angle. So here in America, we typically stick with third angle projection. So this should be a top view, not a bottom view. Okay, so I'm going to change my angle to third angle projection. Okay, this is first angle. Notice how the symbol switches. We're going with third angle. And apply in 3, 2, 1, apply. And OK. And yes, I'm going to have to recreate our view. So this is actually the bottom view. So I'm going to delete it. I'll delete the bottom view. And I'll just recreate it. So I'm going to double click on the front view, double click, generate a projection view, right? Projection. And there it is. Okay, there's our top view. Okay, so next is to do a section, to do the pair of holes here. So I'm going to double click on this one, double click. Notice it's red. Notice here it's selected on the tree. Okay, so we're going to do the first option here, a section view. Okay, so let's create a section view. Click. And then I'm going to try and track the center. It's tracking. I'm going to zoom in. I'm having trouble tracking. So I hover over the center point. Then I track away slowly. See how it's tracking the center? I kind of lost it. I keep misclicking. Okay, now some of you are probably snapping to the grid. This is to turn the grid on and off. Some of you are probably clicking on the grid. You may want to turn off object snap or snap to point. My mistake, snap to point, or else it tries to snap to the grid, as you can see. So if you're having that issue, turn off the snap to point. Turn that off. Turn that off. Okay, obviously I'm having trouble selecting the center and projecting, so I'm just going to go straight to the center, and I'll come back and fix it. Okay, so I'm going to click at the center of the hole. I'm going to go straight down. Notice how it's blue. If it's blue, it's either horizontal or vertical. There it is, blue. And I'm just going to pull away slightly from the object lines, and then I'm going to double click. Double click. Notice it's already generating the view, but we're going to go in the opposite direction. Notice it's missing this end of the T extrusion. That's because I started the section view at the wrong location. So I can always go back and fix that. Okay, so once again you can see it's missing part of it, piece of it. So let's go back. So you can always fix that by just double clicking on our section line. Double click, and then I can grab the endpoint and I can pull on it. Just guesstimate, good enough. And just like Sketch, now you can exit. Okay, so I'm going to exit, and it'll update, and notice how it moved my section cut further outward. And now when we go to the section view, it's complete, right? Nothing's missing. Alright, so here's our section BB, right? By the way, if your text, it's snapping all over the place, right? And it's bothering you, and it probably should, you can always click on the Shift key on the keyboard so you can freely move it. And you're gonna have the same issue with dimensions. Like, hey, why is this snapping to the grid? I have the snap turned off. Well, you can always use the shift key, hold on to the shift key to freely move it, or you can turn off those options. Okay, so I'll come back to that. Okay, so I'll come back to how do you remove that snapping. All right, so let's go ahead and create our other views. Okay, so another view we're going to create is an auxiliary view, C. Okay, so we already took care of detail A, section BB. Now let's create auxiliary view, C. Now this is not a good auxiliary view, but the intention here is to show you how to use auxiliary view command. So we're going to be asked to create an auxiliary view of the chamfer. Okay, so this is auxiliary view, CC. Alright, so we got to activate this view first. So let's go ahead and activate. Okay, so I'm going to double click. So if we're going to use this as our reference view, we need to first activate it. Double click, it's red. Okay, so now we're going to, actually let me click in space to deselect. There it is. Alright, for an auxiliary view, here's auxiliary view. Okay, let me zoom in a little bit. Okay, so I want our auxiliary view line to be parallel and coincident or in line with this chamfer. So I'm going to pull away first, pull away, and just guesstimate the location. Click. Okay, and we need to click one more time. I think in this case we don't have to double click like the section view. Now I want to make sure I'm parallel to the chamfer, so I'm going to right click on this line. I'm going to right click and say parallel. Right click, parallel, and it stays parallel. As you can see, it'll stay parallel. Okay, and then I'm going to click. I think I only need to click once. Click. There it is. Let me zoom out. So now it's giving me a preview of the auxiliary view. And click to generate. There it is. Okay, so we're looking normal to the chamfer. So here's the chamfer, and we're looking normal or perpendicular to the chamfer. Alright, so notice that the view stays locked into that reference view. I'm trying to move it left, but it's sliding along perpendicular to the chamfer. So in some cases where you run out of room on the sheet and you want to move a view, it's like, hey, you know what? I don't have a choice. Preferably, I would like to keep the view here next to our reference view, but it's too tight. There's not enough room on the sheet, so we're going to have to move it over. So we need to break the link. So I'm going to right click on the frame, right click, view positioning, position independently. We can always relink it. We go here to the same spot to relink it to the reference view, but here we're going to break the link, position independently, click, and now I can move it freely, as you can see. Okay, so now let's move it over here. And now we're going to break a part of the view. We're only going to keep this portion of it. There's no need to keep the rest. So here our book is asking us to break the auxiliary view and only keep this portion, just to focus on one feature or one area of the part. Okay, so let's go back, and just to show you, okay, so as you can see in the textbook, they're going to ask you to create a break. Okay, so let's go ahead and create the break in our drawing. Okay, and here it is right here. Oh, it's called clipping. My mistake. I was calling it a break. They call it clipping. Not to be mistaken with broken. broken is when you want to remove like a middle portion. So if you wanted to remove a middle portion, only keep the ends, you would use this option. I was getting mixed up with the terms. Okay, we're going to use clipping. Okay, so first let's activate the view. Let's double click. Then we're going to clip. And I'm just going to aim somewhere near the center of the portion we want to keep. I'll click. And let's see, that's good enough. We'll just eyeball it. Click. And it'll break off the portion you don't want. You can always right click. And you can always remove the clipping if you like. Here it is, unclip. So you can always unclip. Okay, I'm just going to leave it alone as clipped. And let's move over the text. Alright, now let's bring in an isometric view. Okay, so isometric view. So this time I am going to go window vertical. Window vertical. Okay, so let's go ahead and create an isometric view. Okay, so isometric view, click. Then let's click and space in the 3D model. Let's click and space, click. Notice it turns blue. And I'm going to rotate it in the position that I want the isometric view to come in. Okay, so if I'm happy with this isometric view in this position, okay, that's the orientation, you're happy, then click on a flat surface or a plane and it'll generate the isometric view. You can still flip it if you like, so you can see. You can rotate it, okay, but I recommend that you first orient it first and then generate the view. Okay, we're happy with it, so I'm just going to click in space to generate the view, and there it is. We'll maximize this and bring it in. Okay, there it is. Alright, so let's make more room. I'm going to take this front view. Notice how the front view is somehow tied to all these other views. That's why they all move as one. Now these I can project away from the front view. This one from the top view, so you can see. But somehow they're all tied to the front view. That's why they all move as one unit. Alright, so let's throw in some dimensions. Now unfortunately we're using the student license and we don't have the script that automatically allows us to switch over to inches, so it's going to throw in all the dimensions in millimeters, and then I'll show you how to fix that. Alright, so let's throw in some dimensions. Okay, so we'll throw in the overall dimension, then later I'll show you how to add a tolerance. One thing I forgot to mention is how do we add the center lines, the center marks. You can do it manually. You can manually insert center marks. You click on the command and then you click on any circle and it'll generate a center mark. Or you can have it generate all of them in one shot. I can right click on the frame, right click, properties. And I can say, hey, I want to see all the center lines. You can even show hidden lines. Okay, so if I say show me center lines, apply in 3, 2, 1, don't blink, apply, it'll generate center marks. As you can see, it generated center marks. You can also do hidden lines, axes of holes, okay, threads. You don't want all these on, okay, so I'm going to leave the other options off, but we'll leave center line on. And okay, and you can see there's the center marks. You can always change the center marks by pulling on the grips. You can change its size. If I hold on to the control key, it only moves one, so I'm holding on to the control key. If I let go of the control key, it'll move all of them. Okay, so you have that option. Alright, so let's throw in the overall dimension. So let's learn dimensions. So here are dimensions. Dimensions. Okay, so this is almost like a wizard dimensioning command. I'm just going to use the straightforward, hey, let's use length. Okay, so I'll go to length. And I can either pick the line or I can go edge to edge. Either one is acceptable. I'll pick the entire length. And it generates the dimension. So you have to click. So first you click the line and then you click to position. Notice it's in millimeters. Okay, so if I wanted to change it to inches, I want you to go up here. So this is numerical display dimensions millimeters. I'm going to go to the drop down and say, hey, I want inches. You can go feet, inches. That's popular in architecture, centimeters, kilometers, etc. We're going to go with inches. There it is, inches. If you want to change number of decimal places, you can do it here. You can also right-click properties. Right-click properties, and you can change. Let's go back to the value tab. You can change it from here, millimeters, inches, etc. You can also change the decimal places. Right, I'll keep it at 3. You can also add a tolerance from here. So if you want to add a tolerance, might as well put it in there now. You can do the tolerance from here. And I'm going to go 0.03. I'm going to click in here, type in 0.03. Go to the next one, also type in 0.03, so plus or minus 30 thousandths. And I'm going to hit apply and look at the dimension, apply. And it goes plus 30 plus 30. Whoop, I forgot to put the minus. So I got to put a minus in here, put a minus. So it'll be a plus or minus 30 thousandths, apply. And there it is, plus or minus 30 thousandths. So the first digit is tenths, second one is hundredths, third one is thousandths. That's why this is referred to as 30 thousandths. And okay. Okay, so once again, click on the dimension. You can change it here from inches to millimeters, vice versa. You can also change the precision, decimal places. You can also go here to do your tolerance if you like. Alright, so let's go ahead and add a few more dimensions. So I'm going to just leave them as millimeters, and at the end I'm going to change them all to inches. Okay, so let's throw in this dimension from here to here, and then click to position it. Now this should be horizontally oriented. Again, we're using the default standard, so I cannot change it. I have to do it manually. I'll come back and fix that. Actually, you know what? Might as well do it now. Let's go right-click properties because it's bothering me, so I'll go right-click properties. Let's go over to text. So go to text. And, oh, it's not allowing me here to change its orientation. Here's the orientation. It's grayed out. Font? Nope, it's not. It's following a standard. Yes, so unfortunately, it's not letting us change it. Text. Here it should allow us to change the orientation. And it's not allowing me to. Yeah, one thing about CATIA is that it's very picky when it comes to standards. It forces you to use the standard. In this case, it's forcing us to use the ISO standard. Okay, so I'll just leave it the way it is. Alright, so let's throw in more dimensions. Another dimension. Notice it went to the end. That's not what that wasn't my intention. So let me go ahead and delete it. I'll delete the dimension and I'll recreate it. So I'll show you something new off of this mistake I made. So let me do it again. Dimension. I'll click on the edge. Then I'm going to click on the circle. And it automatically goes to the center of the circle. You can always right click and change it if you want. If I go anchor 1, notice it goes to the left quadrant. If I right click again and say, hey, I want to go to anchor 3, it goes to the inside quadrant, as you can see. And right click again, go to anchor, go to the second option, it'll go to the center. As you can see, it went to the center of the circle. The default is the center when it comes to a circle. Okay, let's throw in another dimension from hole to hole, center to center. Let's get the dimension on the flange. And we also need a dimension for the holes. Okay, so I'm going to go with diameter. Okay, one thing that I forgot to mention, let me first add a extension here. There it is. One thing I did forget to mention is how do we turn on these manipulators? So notice I can move this over using the manipulators. I can add text. So for example, if I click on this one, notice you have these red triangles. It's like, hey, I'm not getting them. Well, I'm going to show you in a minute how to turn these on. So if I click on this red triangle, I can say, hey, just like the book, it says typical, TYP. I can type in the text and hit OK. So the hole has a certain diameter, typical, meaning all holes share the same diameter. Alright, so how do we use these manipulators and how do I turn them on? Okay, so let's go to the notes. Okay, here's what we're looking for. Just like when you go to Tools, Options, to change the units, you go to the same place, you go to Tools, Options. But instead of changing units, we're going to go to Mechanical Design, open the tree or the branch, go to Drafting, and you can change your settings here. And we're going to go over to Manipulators, and you're going to turn all these on. So the ones on the right will be on after you will be available to you to use after you created the dimension. You can turn these on and it'll create the manipulators as you're creating the dimension. It shows you manipulators and it actually tends to get in the way as you're creating the dimension, so I just leave these off and I only turn these options on. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So let's go to Tools, Options, and let's go to Mechanical Design, hit the plus sign, go to Drafting, and you can always tab over by using the arrows, go to Manipulators, and turn all these on. Since we're here, let me also bring up the snapping. Remember earlier it was snapping the text? So if you're trying to move your dimension and it's snapping all over the place, you can turn off those options. So let me show you how to do that. So we're going to go to Tools, Options. So we're already in there, right? We just changed our manipulators. And go anywhere where you see the yellow arrow. and turn off the snap option. Okay, so look for a yellow arrow and look for snap and turn off that option. As you can see here, it's off. So that way when you're creating text, it doesn't snap all over the grid. Okay, so let's go ahead and take care of that. Okay, so go to annotate, go to move, and most likely yours is on, so turn this off. And I look for these everywhere, so I look for move, yellow arrow, and snap. I look for all those, so I just go down the list of the tabs. So let's go to the last one. Do I see any here? Nope, I don't see any move option. Go down the list. Well, this one's already taken care of. Go to manipulators. Look for the yellow arrow with the snap option. Nope, so move on. Dimensions. Here's the other one. So under dimensions, go to move, and you want this off. There it is, it's off. And let's keep moving. Let's see if we find any other yellow move arrows, and I don't think there are any more. Okay, we're good. Okay, another thing. Okay, so I'll hit OK. So now anytime you click on the dimension, it's free to move, and you can use the manipulators. You can use manipulators to add or move the dimension, or add text to it if you like. Okay, another thing I wanted to bring up is axis. Notice this blue axis. So most likely yours shows a blue axis. Anytime you double click on one of the views, you'll see the blue axis, and you're wondering, what is that? That's the origin or the axis of the 3D part. Okay, so if I go back to the 3D model window, T Extrusion, here's the axis. So that's what it's displaying. It's displaying the origin 0, 0, 0. And it gets annoying sometimes, so you can turn off that option. So go to the drawing workbench, and what we're going to do is we're going to turn off the display axis option. We're going to turn it off. Okay, so we don't want the blue axis to show up every time we double click on the frame. Okay, so we're going to go over to General tab and the drafting properties. Okay, so tools, options, mechanical, drafting. I think it was the first tab, the general, and turn this off. So mine's already off, but if yours is on, you may want to turn this off so we don't see that blue axis. Okay. Alright, so let's throw in some more dimensions. If you don't complete all the dimensions, I'm okay with it. Or do all your tolerancing, I'm okay with that too. Okay, so let's run a few more dimensions from the handout. So I'm going to go over to the front view. Now, what I should have done earlier, I should have double clicked on this view frame. Anytime you're creating dimensions, it will stay linked to the view where you create it. But when you add text, it'll add text to whichever view frame is red. Okay, so if I was to add new text, I'm going to double click on this view frame. If I was to just randomly add some text for some notes, you can add text. I'm just going to type in whatever. Okay, so I want you to notice that this text is part of the view frame. Okay, it's not part of the other ones. I'm going to go ahead and delete this. So if I was to double click on this one, and add text. I'm just going to randomly place it somewhere and just randomly type in some letters. And there it is. So the text will stay tied to the view frame, as you can see. If you want to add the text to the sheet, you double click on the sheet. And notice none of the view frames are red anymore. So now when I add text, I'm not trying to type in some letters. Okay. So now the text is on the sheet, not on the views. Okay. So always be alert of which view is active, or is the sheet active, because any text you create will be attached to that view, or if the sheet is active like it currently is, it'll attach it directly to the sheet. Okay. Let me go ahead and delete that. Alright, so it's a good habit to always double click on the view frame you're currently working on. So I'll double click on the front view, throw in some dimensions. And I'll throw in the radius. I'm going to add the little extension. There it is. Okay, I'll leave it up to you if you want to throw in all the dimensions, but let's say I'm done with the dimensions, right? Say I'm done. And all these are in millimeters, as you can see. Okay, so if I was to click on one dimension, right, you can see this light up. It's in inches, but if I click on this one's in millimeters. So keep your eye here, right, in this area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to window capture everything. And then right here I'm going to change everything to inches. Click. And all my dimensions are now in inches, as you can see. Alright? Everything's in inches. Okay, so that's one way around it, is first throw in all your dimensions, then window capture everything, and change it to inches. If you want to leave it in millimeters, I'm okay with it. Alright, so I'll leave it up to you as far as adding tolerances, etc., or adding the other dimensions. I want to move on to title block and border. Okay, so let's say we're ready to throw in, oh, you know what? One thing I did forget was to add the chamfer angle. Let me go ahead and double click here and add the angle on the chamfer. And there we have it. Alright, so let's go ahead and add a title block and border. So let's go to the notes. By the way, you can always add symbols or frames around your dimensions or flag notes, etc. You want to let me do that first before I go over to title blocks and borders? So if, for example, if you're working with GD&T, and you're going to use GD&T, geometric dimensioning and tolerancing, and you wanted to add a frame around your dimension, you can always click on it, and we can add a frame from here. There it is. So those of you that are using GD&T, you can always click, add a frame from here, or you can always right-click properties. Right-click properties, and from here you can see dimension, text. From here you can add symbols. On the text, you can always put a frame around it, right? Circle, flag note, etc., or nothing at all, right? So I'm going to remove that frame, no frame, apply, and that'll remove it. You can also add a symbol from here, or actually from here also. Okay, so if I wanted to add a symbol, go to dimensions text, and from the drop down I can add a symbol if I want. Diameter, apply. Notice there's a diameter symbol. But in this case, we don't need it, so I'm going to just go to none and apply, and it'll remove it. And OK. Alright, so delete this text that I don't need. Alright, so let's go ahead and add a title block and border. Okay, one thing to be aware of is there is no title block and border icon here. Okay, so let me show you where to find it. So to be able to put a title block and border, you need to go to Edit and go all the way down to Sheet Background. Okay, so let me move this slightly upward a little bit. So go to Edit, Sheet Background, and you'll see the background will turn gray, and it gives you more options, or new options I should say, for commands. So let's go ahead and go to CATIA, go to Edit, Sheet Background, and keep an eye on the icons on the right. In 3, 2, 1, Sheet Background, and notice how the icons change. Oh, we still have text, we still have center mark, but now you have frame and title block. Okay, so if I click on it, I have a few options here. You may have a company option here. Hey, do you want this title block? Do you want this option? Do you want that option, etc.? I'll just go with the default, the first one. And I want to create a title block and border and apply. In 3, 2, 1, don't blink, apply, and it generates a title block and border based on the sheet size. So if you were to change the sheet size, let's say you went from a C to a D size, you can always come back here and resize it, and it'll resize the title block and border to match your sheet size. Okay, if you want to add a revision block, you should add it up here on the upper right. Revision block, add revision block, apply. And these are the initials of the checker or approver. Okay, okay. And there it generates our revision block. If you're okay with it, hit OK. You can always change the initials here. Double click. Yeah, I'm going to put my initials for checker or approver. Okay. Here you're going to describe the changes. Hey, we're releasing this for a quote, or hey, we changed the hole diameter. So here the description will be any changes you made, if there are any. Notice how it automatically generated today's date. And here's a revision, revision A. And you can keep adding more revisions if you make more changes. Okay, notice the view, isometric view, is clashing with the revision block. I cannot do any changes to the views because I'm in sheet background. Okay, so while I'm in sheet background, I can make changes to anything in the background, like, hey, I want to change the title. L Extrusion, hey, I want to change it to T Extrusion. What sheet size is it? Oh, that's the one we created. The user created its own sheet size. I'm going to go with C size, right? So we're using a sheet size C. Okay. Notice it also generates the third angle projection symbol. It also generated my name, today's date, who checks it. So this would be your boss or a checker. Put their initials. I'll just make up some initials. And the date they checked it. Okay, so you can double click and make changes. You can also make changes to the title block if you like, or the border I should say. Okay, so any changes on title block and border, you have to do it in the background. Also, you can also generate a bill of material. So here's the icon to generate a bill of material. Now this is a single part. If it was an assembly, so in CAD 32, you're going to be creating assemblies, multiple parts. This is where you generate your bill of material. You will click on your bill of material, click, and then click at the top of the tree of your assembly. So for example, your U-joint assembly. So click bill of material, go to your U-joint assembly, click at the top of the tree so CATIA knows to generate a bill of material off of that assembly. All right. Okay, so to exit sheet background, we go to edit, go back to working views. Working views. Now we are in working views, so now we can move our views. Notice how things are clashing. So I can move these around, make some room. Notice the isometric view is a little too large. So here is where I will make it smaller and maybe even use an odd number. Right click properties. Say, you know what, I'm going to go to half size. I can go to 1 to 2 or 0.5. 0.5, that's half size. And okay. And there it is, it makes it smaller. Typically an isometric view is reference only. So isometric view, it's just a visual. You don't tend to dimension it, right? It's just a visual to help the audience. The audience is a person that's looking at your drawing. It can be a checker, an inspector. It can be a machinist, a sheet metal forming technician. Okay, so this is just a nice, cool extra visual, which is not necessary, but it's helpful to visualize the part. All right, so let me make sure I didn't miss anything. Okay, so we generated our title block and border. You can also insert a table or even an Excel spreadsheet for your bill of material. So you can create a table by clicking on the table, and it's gonna ask you for how many columns and rows you want, and it's almost like an Excel spreadsheet, except it's not as smart as an Excel spreadsheet. It's limited. You can always double click on the cells to type in the part number, item number, material, etc., description. So here's the option to create a table. You can also insert an Excel spreadsheet for your bill of material, and you typically want it in the background. Edit sheet background. So if you have a bill of material parts list that you want to insert, you can go to Insert, Object. And I actually do have one for another class, so create from existing file, browse. So here I have a bill of material in Excel. Hit open. Now I can bring it in as an icon if I want, or just link it. But I'm going to bring it in so you actually see the Excel spreadsheet. I'm going to hit OK. Give it a few seconds to generate, and there's the Excel spreadsheet. So you can actually bring in an Excel spreadsheet. Now if you want to make changes to a bill of material or parts list, you can always double click on it and give it a few seconds. It'll actually load Excel, and there it is. So you can actually make changes in Excel, save it, and it'll update in CATIA. Okay, so once you save it, close it, it will update your bill of material or parts list. So when you create a bill of material in Excel, keep it in the same folder. Okay, keep it all together. Same thing with your drawing. Try and keep your drawing together with your part. In this case, it would be the T Extrusion, right? Try and keep them in the same folder. If you send this to somebody to give you a quote, or maybe you want this part machined, you're going to send them the 3D part and also the drawing. Now the drawing is linked to the 3D part. So the drawing is actually the child of the 3D part. Okay, so let me go window vertical. The drawing is the child of the parent, which is the T Extrusion, the 3D model. If you were to delete the model, the drawing will become non-smart. Currently the drawing is smart. Any changes you make to the 3D model, the drawing will update. Okay, so let me first go to Edit, Working View. So if I was to add a hole on the side here, the drawing will update. Okay, so let me add a hole here on the side. Let me click here first on my part design. I'm just going to randomly add a hole on the side. And I'll make it large just so it stands out. Well, it's a little too large, but I'll leave it there alone. I'll leave it alone, so I'm going to go ahead and let me make it a little bit smaller. That's a little too large. Yeah, it's still too large. Okay, so there's the hole. So now when I go to the drawing, watch how this is going to show you yellow swirls. So the drawing detects that there's been a change to the 3D part. So you see all these swirls, right? It wants to update. So when I click update, notice now it adds the hole. Okay, so the point is the drawing is linked to the part, to the 3D part. If you ever separate them, so for example, if you were to send this drawing to a machine shop and only the drawing will break links, and it'll show you here on the tree, like, hey, I lost the link to the parent, which is the 3D part. Okay, so try and keep them together, or else the drawing will become non-smart. It'll become like, it's like changing a human to a mannequin. All right, let me go back to the notes, make sure I didn't miss anything. This is stuff that you're going to learn in CAD 32, dealing with assemblies. I'm not going to cover it in this video or this class. And let me go to our first lecture notes. Just double checking. And once again, the CAD drawing will always be linked to the CAD part where it generated from. Okay, so we covered everything. So the last thing we need to do is save our work. Okay, so any changes you made to the 3D model and to the drawing, you want to save it. Okay, so let's go. We're going to go to File, Save Management. So it recognized that we made a change to the T Extrusion, right? When we added that large hole. Obviously you're not going to do it to yours. So I modified the T Extrusion by adding the hole. And here's our drawing. Notice it gives us a preview. I'm going to go to Save As. And I'll save it as T Extrusion drawing. Notice it saves it as a cat drawing. And I want to keep it together. Okay, I want to keep it together with the T Extrusion. I actually already have the drawing there. Now, even though I have the part here, it's not showing me the part because it's filtering out everything except cat drawings. So, but the part is in here, but it's filtering out everything except cat drawings. Okay, so make sure to save your work. Okay, so it's going to save the drawing. It's going to save the modified T Extrusion and hit OK. And it doesn't want to save. Okay, let me cancel. It's not saving my changes, so I forgot to click on the T Extrusion, save. There it is. Once I hit OK, then it'll save it. Even though it says save, it hasn't saved it yet until I hit OK. And there it is. Everything's being saved. And I got an error message. That's all right. Looks like it's conflicting with somebody else's part. I got multiple parts, so it looks like it's conflicting with other existing parts with the same name. That's my guess. That's what's happening. All right. One thing I did forget to mention is how do you add a sheet? You can always click here, new sheet, click on it, and it adds a new sheet. So we have sheet 1, sheet 2, sheet 3, etc. And And there's also a detail sheet, which you typically put at the very end. So a detail sheet, if you're going to use a lot of symbols, for example, or orientation symbols, that's a good example. Forward, aft on an aircraft, this is where you would place them. And you can always copy them over to the sheets. Alright, so that's the end of the drafting video. See you in the next one.